I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is Ninja Spy.
Number 2. For Eklo.
SOS from the SOS is the name of this song.
If you'll notice in the bottom of the screen, actually that's some art that he created. He's been like messing around with digital art. And so he created this little guy.
Should have that as a brought to you by.
Yeah, that's what he wants us as brought to you by.
Brought to you by.
There it is at the bottom of the screen. You can see the little guy.
Eklo, the what do you call it? I was going to say the platypus, but it's not a platypus.
No, it's an octopus. I'm sure the other 3 tendrils are behind him. Somewhere.
For timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up in Middle America with Vin and Sori.
That's us.
Yeah. And
Vin put out a pretty funny one. It's a 3-minute. It's a pretty interesting one.
It's a very serious update on current events on Middle America.
It's a 3-minute video. That ought to just pull you in right there.
Very important. Usually the Middle America videos are long form, but this time we went straight to the point. It's very, very important for the future of our country.
Yep. You'll see a bit of what he looked like maybe in high school. I don't know.
It's true. It's true.
All right. So anyway, also, if you're like, hey, how do I get a song reaction? The way to get a song reaction, you can post on our different forums, our social media platforms and stuff. We haven't been pulling a whole lot of songs from there because actually the other ways of getting song reactions have been doing pretty well. So one of the ways is to join an alliance. You can jump on a Patreon, link is in the description, and for as little as $1 a month, you jump onto Discord and you get to meet other people and you guys work together to influence our song list. That's a pretty cool way. It's Vin's favorite, obviously, because you get to work with people and you get to do other things. Honestly, it's a really good platform if you're somebody who you feel lonely, you want to meet new people, if you're an introvert, if you're it really doesn't matter because you can engage or disengage as much as you want on there. So it's really, really great. Another way is what Eklo picked is where you jump on the $125 tier, or you go through PayPal, whichever one you want to do. After you do 3 songs with us, it jumps down to the $75 price instead of $125. But if just a little bit of information, the short list is a list that I keep, and everybody's names go on it in order of when they come in. So if you want to get your song in sooner, the best way is to do PayPal rather than Patreon, because Patreon is going to wait all till the beginning of the next month before they charge you, and then that's when your song gets on the list. So if you want it on the short list sooner, that's my tip to you, go through PayPal. So this is, okay, I don't know how to pronounce this.
Ninja Spy.
Maybe.
SOS from the SOS.
What did I say, Ninjaspy? It was like, it's actually Ninja Spy. Anyway, whatever.
SOS from the SOS, ladies and gentlemen.
Here we go.
Don't conform to anything.
So unexpected.
Say it just don't matter. I think I'm really scared. Life's too short to be thinking like this, and I was not prepared to live like a patient. Save our souls. Save our souls. Save yourself. Save our souls. Save our souls. Save our souls. Save yourself.
That was not at all what I expected.
They sound like a combination of like metal, new metal, and then this band named 311. I was trying to search for the name of the band. I was like, these guys sound a little bit like 311. They had some ska flavor in the, especially at the top. Okay, so this is a classic. It's a very intelligent title. SOS from the SOS.
That's so
Just gonna come out and say it because I did not think that. Yeah.
that I was gonna pick up on it. You're very nice. Yeah, you kept switching because you were looking for that other thing, so I'm like, hold on, pull the lyrics.
Dun, dun, dun.
I was totally surprised by what it sounded like. I didn't expect that at all. Because I
Why?
still wasn't convinced. Remember that song that we listened to that was something, I don't know. Remember it was like that really weird...
Was it a System of a Down song?
No, it was like that Asian song. Something down. What is it like? That weird song that was like catchy and it like had billions of views, but it like sucked on our channel.
Oh, the Korean song?
Yeah.
With the Gangnam Style?
Gangnam Style, that one. So that's because it said to me, I was looking at it Ninjaspy, so it sounded like something like that. So I
thought it was a foreign thing.
So even though you said it was Ninja Spy, I was like, man, I don't know. And then when it started, I was like, this is not at all what I was expecting. So the whole thing threw me off.
You
They had a
still
lot of-
thought it was something other than Ninja Spy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, and you were laughing at me.
I didn't say a word.
But inside I was like, man, but you might be wrong. And then it started, I was like, and you're not. How annoying.
Here's one. Do you still
I
think that's
see.
Ninjaspy?
It looks like Ninja Spy. Oh, wow. Okay, that's cool.
Alright, so I think this is just a classic nonconformist song, which I think right now is probably a life or death thing for our country because I think there are extremists on both sides. And when I say extremists, I don't mean necessarily like extremists in action, but extremists in interpretation of reality of what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think, there's a lot of pressure if you look at the comment section in Middle America based on the video. There's a lot of pressure on both sides to continue a party line and not make make hamburgers out of people's sacred cows.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of pressure to conform. And, what's interesting is nonconformists or anarchists, whatever you want to call them, whatever people want to call themselves, have their own version of conformity that they want people to conform to.
Yeah.
And
everybody
obviously,
does.
People on the other side, libertarians or whatever, they say they're libertarians as far as liberty, but they're not very libertarian as far as freedom of thought goes because it's, you wouldn't have a subculture otherwise. And I think to some degree, there is a necessity for conforming because you've got to go in the same direction. You can't have everybody going off doing their own thing. But, you can't run a family that way, you can't run a business that way, you can't run a team that way. There's got to be conformity and clear leadership and a clear agreed upon goal. But I think you know, the conflict between the left brain and the right brain, or the conflict between order and chaos, and you know, novelty and simplicity, like those things are constantly fighting each other. And so the only way you can have real nonconformists is if you have conformity in the outer ring. So there's got to be some sort of line of demarcation. Like, so for example, if a person says, I'm not going to conform to this no murder stuff, we're going to say, well, either you conform to the no murder stuff or you're out. Right? So that's an extreme example of saying, okay, at some level we need conformity.
Well, I remember the funniest example to me was when we were watching that Satanist documentary.
Yes.
And it was like
the Hail Satan documentary.
Yeah, and like, you know, everybody, it was all about, you know, basically, you know, you explain it, do your thing, blah blah blah. But then the girl took it too far.
Right. She said she was going to assassinate the president.
Kill the president. Yeah. And so they kicked her out because it was it was too much.
Yeah,
she took it too far.
She took it too far.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. She's like, I got kicked out of, you know, the Church of Satan or whatever for being too extreme. But yeah,
it was just a funny example to me because. But that's what happens. You can't, like, there has to be some level, and you're seeing it even. What is that place? The Char place or whatever they call it.
The Chop.
Huh?
The Chop, the CHAZ.
I thought it was
changes.
CHAZ, yeah.
I mean, it's done now.
Yeah, but when it was going, it was like the same thing was true there. Like they started drawing lines for people.
Well, although I'm not very well versed in anarchy, but anarchy does not mean complete lawlessness. I think that the best definition of anarchy, or my favorite definition of anarchy, whatever you want to say, was what I got from Noam Chomsky, which was basically anarchy is a society where people in authority have to constantly justify their authority. And I think that that's a good way to look at authority at the societal level.
Yeah.
You have to justify it. Why do you have this authority? Whereas right now, the authority is just sort of looked at as a de fide doctrine, like, oh, I'm a cop, I have a badge, so I get to do whatever I want with you. And our anarchists, now I don't know what that looks like in real life because I haven't seen an example of an anarchist society thriving and all the rest of it. And I had one conversation with BM Fan about an anarchist society. I forgot what it was. It was a country in South America, I think. And, you know, it fizzled out pretty quickly. And he said, well, that's because the capitalists and, you know, whatever came in and destroyed them. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, that's, if you don't have organized leadership, then yeah, you're going to be vulnerable to that type of attack and you're going to fall pretty quickly, which is exactly, of course, the CHAZ Chop situation, to me, was almost a psychological operation at the federal level, because on the one hand, everybody pulled out, all the law enforcement basically surrendered the area to those people, and they really thought that they had some victory, when to me it was kind of, it just reminded me of like being in the hood.
Oh.
No, not really the purge. It just reminded me of being in the hood, where the DTs would show up in the neighborhood, and if you had X amount of drugs and drug money on you, you'd get 5 years in prison. But if you had X amount of drugs and drug money on you, you would get 30 years in prison. So they would just drive around, and then they'd find somebody, and then they'd just watch them until they ended up with that combination, and then they'd get them. So the DTs were in control the entire time. But they just kind of let them have their thing, and those dudes were strutting around and stunting and flossing. They had all these cars.
What's
and
flossing?
Flossing is just another way to, you know, talk about showing off. But they were doing all that, and the entire time they were playing right into the hands of what the DTs wanted them to do.
Oh, I see.
So when I look at the CHAZ, I was like, people, you know, right-wingers were going crazy, like, I can't believe this. They surrendered to the, you know, and I was talking to somebody who's, you know, whatever. I'm like, this is, and he was like, no comment. And when he says that, I was like, okay, well.
Oh my gosh.
Because
yeah,
we're literally the most powerful country on the face of the earth. Our police force could take out 2/3 of the world, much less our military. So the idea that these kids with their, M4s and their Molotov cocktails really overcame the might of the U.S. government is just a ridiculous idea on its face. And they were allowing that to happen so that what happened. Because in any new country, I mean, I don't know if people remember this, but do you remember the Wild Wild West? Remember that whole thing? That's what happens when a new country is beginning. You're going to have that sort of chaos and things like that until the structures are constructed. But, and so the Brits were looking at us like, look at these stupid Americans. Ha, it was a big joke. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like the way that the Brits were interpreting our independence is the same way that we were people were looking at the CHAZ and saying, oh, this is not going to work. Look, people got shot, yada, yada, yada. It's like, well, people got shot and killed during in America too at the early stages of our country. Again, the Wild Wild West. And then basically the government said okay, and then they just went in there, and psychologically this is the message to anarchists. One is that your government will never work, and two, you guys stand no chance against us. The minute we snap our fingers, you guys are finished. So the whole thing, in my mind, was just a psychological operation.
I see.
To quell any sort of real resistance. And I think the next time something like that happens, the leadership of those communities have to understand that, okay, they have to let their folks know what the game plan is, and they've got to be a lot more organized, because that's a gamble. That's a bluff calling gamble that the government did, but it worked because they rightly assumed that these people didn't have the organizational intelligence
to be able to
actually know what's happening.
Yeah.
So, and they did not manipulate media very well either, those CHAZ people. I haven't seen one live update from them or anything like that. They didn't utilize social media very well. The only time they ended up in the news, they were reactionary in the way that they ended up in the news. Something bad would happen, then the news would come and report on it, or some hidden camera would pop and people were getting shot up and all the rest of it. They did not do a very good job at marketing themselves to the rest of the country so as to get, I think the next time the anarchists want to do something, they should look at what happened with the Bundy Ranch thing that happened about, 7-8 years ago, where they called up all the far-right militia people from literally all over the country to come down and descend and bring their M4s and stand off against the government. And that was a situation where I know for a fact that the government took that threat very seriously, and the government actually backed down in that situation. And then later, they found Clyde by himself, and pretty sure special weapons guys took him down. They killed him in broad daylight.
Yeah, I remember that actually.
Yeah, that was years later though.
Yeah.
When he was by himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like the government, like
he must have been talking so big for those few years.
Well, I mean, he had a right to. They won. They won the altercation. So, but there was also the Tea Party situation, because there was the anger over Obama. So they did a very, very good job. Like, I had guys hitting me up like, yo, Vin, let's go. Da 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 da. I'm like, man, I'm not going down there to get involved in that nonsense. He's like, I'm like, no way, man. No, go ahead. And the guy was from New Hampshire. He went down there.
Really?
Yeah. It was no joke. So.
And he was fine? He was safe and all?
The government backed down. I mean, these dudes were rolling up in droves with M4s. I mean, these were militia. Like,
isn't it because the guy, something about his property or taxes or
something?
The
government owned the land or whatever, and he was like, no, I'm not giving it back to you. And so the government rolled up there, and they utilized Facebook. You can call them, Hicks, Redneck, call them whatever you want. But they utilized social media to a T. They told their story the same way they wanted it told. And folks were showing up by the truckloads.
That's wild.
With firearms and all the rest of it. And they were, I mean, even some Christian groups were down there. So, like, it was no joke. And the government was like, okay, we can win this fight, but these dudes are literally ready to kill. These are Second Amendment people. They're literally ready to kill. And we can beat them, but look at the optics of that. You go down there, I mean, Obama, you go down there and you massacre a bunch of patriots over this dude's land? Please.
Because people already have a feeling about the government and land and taxes.
Well, that's the thing is, like, people don't understand stuff. Like, you don't need to win in order to beat the government. You don't need to win a firefight to beat the government. A lot of times it's about how much of your comfortable, cushy life are you willing to sacrifice? So when these militia dudes show up and say, we're ready to kill and die over this shit, are you ready for the ramifications of what will happen? Because now everybody's got cell phone cameras and all the rest.
Yeah.
You want to have that, a battlefield of American soldiers shooting, or American cops shooting up these. And I'm sorry, some of these militia groups are better trained at asymmetrical warfare than the police are. That's a fact. These guys are vets. These guys are ex. These guys are very good at asymmetrical warfare.
That's all.
Your average police officer would get so then you'd have to bring in certain elements, and it would just be horrible. Just be a horrible situation. Just be very, very bad. So, but I feel like the CHAZ people should have took some cues from the from that Bundy standoff, and they would have been okay. But but once again, Cliven, I'm pretty sure he's dead. So they killed that dude. I had just got back from a trip, and I was on a connecting flight back home when I got an update on my phone. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, and I saw the video. I was like, holy shit, they got him. Because there's no way they were going to let that guy live. There's no way.
Well, if they do, then everybody starts getting big ideas.
Yeah, but the far right is a lot more organized than the far left. I think that if you compare the CHAZ and the Bundy situation, and Peter was mad at me. He's like, you're glorifying these people. No, I'm just saying that the far right is a lot more organized in how they because the far right is based on documents. The far right is based on constitutionality and originalist understanding of the Constitution, and then warfare and tactics. These are extremely intelligent people. And I'm not saying that the far left are not extremely intelligent either. They are, but they don't have a lot of experience in taking those ideas and then manifesting them in the real world in such a way that it can affect what you're trying to accomplish. They don't have experience in that. But these far right people do, and it's clear when you look at the Bundy standoff was actually way more anarchist than the CHAZ, actually, and that's the funny part.
Wow.
About it.
Yeah.
The ironic part about it is that if you talk about anarchist principles and things of that nature, those guys were way more anarchist than what you saw with the CHAZ. The CHAZ was just was just a complete disorganized
maybe it's because it was so dysfunctional.
It just looked like people were just, and again, I'm gonna try to get this with BM Fan and Zonia, but it just looked like people were just making stuff up as they went along. I heard they had like black only like farms or whatever, or vegetable gardens or whatever. Like they gave the black people the best, and they wouldn't let the white people in the. It's just weird. Like,
really?
Yeah, just very strange.
Oh, that would be an interesting conversation.
Just
because that's
very strange stuff that you need at the beginning stages of a movement like that. They call it a spirited core. You need like that unity and that bond and the we're in this together stuff and we're brothers and all that. And you had these black militia groups with these white militia groups, and they were like, hey, we're brothers and all that. And under normal circumstances, they would have never spoken to each other, but because they had a common enemy with the government, they were all like, hey, like they figured it out very quickly. These people, just very, very disorganized. Very disorganized. So the whole thing just looked like a giant psychological operation by the government that went off very well. Because now I think anarchists are looking at it like, okay, this is completely impractical, and it's going to be very, very difficult to recruit people to start another one of these things now because, the government did a quick assessment and they said, yeah, let this guy's have it. You should, if there was a real anarchist threat, the government would not just surrender the town to those people. It would not happen that way. Just FYI. But anyway, so the song is very interesting because it's a nonconformist song, and it's also save us from the same old yada yada yada. And I get it, but I think everybody's trying to figure out how to strike that balance between nonconformity and conformity.
Yeah.
how to remain as an individual in a collective, and
Yep.
that's a very, very difficult thing to surmise. Obviously, as Christians, we've got a 2,000-year-old template that we can play around with. But if you're not operating from that rubric, forget it. What do you give the song?
A 9.
This is a solid 9.3 for me. That's an extra 0.3 because there were like multiple different styles and genres within this song, but they all worked very well.
Yeah.
So there you are. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone.